Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam wa rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala amma ba'd. We have another request from Hadith Disciple with regards to honey. Honey and honeybees, the virtue of honey, some of the special unique qualities and traits of honey. Therefore, in this episode, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, of request, if that's what you want to call it, we will briefly discuss some of the benefits of this and some of the qualities of that, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of honey. Now, there's two ways we can deal with a topic like this. First is general, and the second is specific. As for the general manner, then it is by saying the bee has been mentioned in the Quran al-Kareem. Okay? And that which the bee or the honeybee specifically produces has also been mentioned in the Quran al-Kareem. So therefore, that is a sufficient amount of virtue and excellence in itself that Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned it. That's more than enough. Another way of looking at it, or a specific way of dealing with the bee and the honeybee, or the honey that those types of bees produce, is looking at what is made clear to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's signs. Okay, the quality and the nature of that honey, the actions, okay, and the amazing, fascinating facts of those bees that produce that type of honey from what Allah Azza wa Jalla has taught us and educated us regarding. And we have a general rule in Islam, and that is عِذْم أو عِنَّ عِذْم الْمَخْلُوق يدل على عِذْم الْخَالِق. The magnificence, the greatness, okay, of the created being proves the greatness and the magnificence of the Creator, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So every fascinating fact that you can get about bees or honeybees and the honey that they produce and the health benefits and so on and so forth, it goes back to the one who made those bees, the one who created them, who brought them into existence and who allowed them to do what they do. So before we even get into the aspect of honeybees, just look at the bee in itself. Okay, it's a small insect compared to many other things that exist in the world today. Just look at the types of bees that you have. The ability to fly, to travel from one place to another, the whole concept of the pollen of the bee, even some of the adverse effects of the bee, the sting of the bee. Some people die from bee stings. How something so small and so tiny can be so powerful and so potent. There lies no doubt in that there is a sign. There's a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, we don't have a lot of time here. We want to just discuss a few things with regards to the virtue of bees in general, and specifically the honeybee and the honey that it produces, bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to make things short and keep things simple, let's take a selection from the Quran al-Kareem, the 16th chapter, the chapter of the bee, Surah an-Nahl, verse 69. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says,
وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ أَنِ اتَّخِذِي مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا وَمِنَ الشَّجَرِ وَمِمَّا يَعْرِشُونَ ثُمَّ كُلِي مِن كُلِّ الثَّمَرَاتِ فَاسْلُكِي سُبُلَ رَبِّكِ ذُلُلًا يَخْرُجُ مِن بُطُونِهَا شَرَابٌ مُخْتَلِفٌ أَلْوَانُهُ فِيهِ شِفَاءٌ لِلنَّاسِ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ.
And your Lord inspired to the bee, take for yourself among the mountains houses, i.e. hives, and among the trees and that which they construct. Then eat from all the fruits and follow the ways of your Lord that He has laid down for you. And there emerges from their bellies a drink varying in color, and which is a healing, the means of cure for people. Indeed, that is a sign for people who give thought. In these two verses from the Quran al-Kareem, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that your Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inspired the bee. He gave the bee a type of inspiration, a type of revelation. He didn't send down a book to the bee, make the bee a prophet or a messenger, but he inspired it. He divinely inspired that insect, that created being, to do what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, take for yourself, an-Nahl. He says, take for yourself. In other words, the bees. He says, among mountains, among houses, and the trees, and that which the human beings construct. In other words, from the miracles of the bee, from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that you have beehives. You have beehives in all types of locations, all types of places. Sometimes it may not be the most comfortable place or the most wanted place for a human being, but the fact is that the bee constructs for itself a house. It takes for itself a place to dwell, a place to live. There lies no doubt that is a sign, and it is divinely inspired, as Allah clearly tells us. The next verse, or the translation of the next verse, then says, ثُمَّ كُلِي مِن كُلِّ الثَّمَرَاتِ. Allah says, then eat of all fruits and follow the ways of your Lord that He has laid down. Clear. Allah, He mentions to the bee the virtue of what He has provided the bee with, allowing it to travel from one place to another, long distances sometimes. That is another miracle, another sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, He then says, there emerges from their bellies a drink, varying it in colors, in which there is a healing for people. Indeed, that is a sign for people who give thought. So let's break this down in brief. Let's get to the core issue now. From the greatest virtues of honey and the honeybee is that there is a relation between them and between the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You may ask, how is this? What does tawheed have to do with honey? Or what does honey have to do with tawheed? Abdurrahman ibn Nasir as-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, he says in his tafsir, في خلق هذه النحلة الصغيرة التي هداها الله هذه الهداية العجيبة ويسر لها المراعي ثم الرجوع إلى بيوتها التي أصلحتها بتعليم الله لها وهدايته لها ثم يخرج من بطونها هذا العسل اللذيذ مختلف الألوان بحسب اختلاف أرضها ومراعيها فيه شفاء للناس من أمراض عديدة فهذا دليل على كمال عناية الله تعالى وتمام لطفه بعباده وأنه لا ينبغي أن يحب غيره ويدعى سواه. Ibn Sa'di says, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creating this small insect and then giving it this marvelous guidance, hidayah, ajiba, marvelous guidance, allowing it to construct houses, allowing it to construct hives for itself, to travel from one place to another. He says, then on top of this, from its bellies comes forth a sharab. The literal translation will mean a drink, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean a drink. The word sharab in the Arabic language could be anything that is digested, anything that's taken inside. He says, from these bees come this type of sharab. He says, it says delicious, ladif, of wonderful taste, and of various colors, depending on what land, depending on what section, or what part of the earth, or country, wherever you are, whatever type of bees or honeybees that you have. He says, in which there is a shifa, there is a cure and a remedy for many diseases and many illnesses. He says, this is a clear proof upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's perfect care for His slaves and His gentleness with His created beings, and the fact and the reality that it is unnecessary for anyone besides Allah to be loved, and anyone besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be invoked and supplicated. Allahu Akbar. Ibn Sa'di says how Allah created the bee, allowed it to live, produce this sharab, this drink, quote unquote, and the cure and the remedy that it gives people by Allah's permission. He says that is a proof that Allah Azza wa Jalla is the most perfect, is the most merciful, is the most courteous, and that no one should be loved besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that no one should be called and you call out to, you supplicate to, you pray and ask, except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore we see the relation, the sir, the connection between the bee, the honeybee, honey itself, and between the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, loving Allah Azza wa Jal and loving no one besides Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now let's read some of the different fascinating facts about the honeybee. The next thing that we have prepared here are some pieces of information and some very interesting facts with regards to honeybees and with regards to honey. Honey has been valued as a natural sweetener long before sugar became widely available in the 16th century. Honey production flourished in ancient Greece and Sicily. For instance, while animals other than humans, bears, badgers, and more, have long raided honeybee hives, risking stings for the sweet reward. Now, we all know, or anyone who reads history, not to go too far off the topic, anyone who comes across history of the 16th, 17th century, and that which came after those two generations of those that time period, knows how important the wide manufacturing and distribution and the trading of sugar cane, molasses, processed white sugar, all of these things that changed history. Way before this even came into play, there was honey. So therefore, if sugar was important, then before sugar, honey had that status of being a natural sweetener. Honey is, now he says here, honey is truly remarkable substance, made even more extraordinary by the process with which it is made. Allahu Akbar. Honey itself is a remarkable substance. It's an ayah. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, indeed in that there is a sign for those who think, for those who ponder. Okay? Those who actually use their minds and they look at honey, how it's made, what it tastes like, its benefits, and most importantly above all of that, what does Allah want from you by giving you honey? It's a remarkable substance. It says, and it's even more extraordinary by the process with which it is made. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Ibn Sayyid he said, the remarkable guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The remarkable guidance of Allah to the bee. It makes it even more special. This blend of sugar, trace, enzymes, minerals, vitamins, and amino acids is quite unlike any other sweetener on the planet. Now, while honey is high in fructose, it has many health benefits when used in moderation, assuming that you're healthy. In other words, nothing is to be used in an extreme manner. Everything has a balance in it, even honey. Before I delve into those, here's a brief lesson on how honey is made. How honey is made, fascinating. It takes about 60,000 bees, collectively traveling up to 55,000 miles, and visiting more than 2 million flowers to gather enough nectar to make 1 pound of honey. Once the nectar is gathered, the bee stores in its extra stomach where it mixes with enzymes and then passes it via regurgitation to another bee's mouth. This process is repeated until the nectar becomes partially digested and then deposited into a honeycomb. Once there, the honeybees fan the liquid nectar with their wings, helping the water to evaporate and create the thick substance you know as honey. This honeycomb is then sealed with a liquid secretion from the bee's abdomen, which hardens into the bee's wax, as live science has reported. Allahu Akbar. Did we just realize what we read? The bee uses its wings, it has an extra stomach, the secretion, it goes to another bee's mouth just to produce this substance. Do you think, honestly, this happened by accident? You think it just, poof, appeared out of nowhere? No. Someone made that bee. Someone created that bee. Someone gave it remarkable guidance. And he is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It then says, away from the air and water, honey can be stored indefinitely, providing bees with the perfect food source for cold winter months. In other words, not only do you benefit from the honey, but the bees themselves do. There are more than 300 kinds of honey in the U.S., each with a unique color and flavor that is dependent upon the nectar source. What does Allah Azza wa Jalla say? Mukhtalifun. Allah says it varies in color. There's different types of honey. According to this report here, we have 300 types in the U.S. alone. So what about the other countries, the other continents? What about the other parts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's spacious earth? How many other types of honey are there? It then says, lighter colored honeys, such as those made from orange blossoms, tend to be milder in flavor, while darker colored honeys, like those made from wildflowers, tend to have a more robust flavor. Honey facts you may not know. Here we have some health benefits of honey. And before we read some of these things, because this is not a lesson specifically on this, is that honey, like many other things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made, such as olive oil. Okay, pure olive oil can be used externally and internally. Can be used on your skin, on your scalp. It can be used to eat, to cook with, a means of moisturizing your skin, and the list goes on. Very similar to asal, honey. And we all know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran al-Kareem, He mentions what tini was zaytun. He talks about the olive. Allah Azza wa Jal, He talks about the tree, shajaratin mubarakah. He says it is a blessed tree, the olive oil tree. Allah Azza wa Jal, He talks about those lands in which some of, if not the best olive oil is produced in the Mediterranean, okay? Palestine, Syria, places like this, Al-Quds, Yani Sham, has some of the best olive oil that you can find around. There are other countries that produce good olive oil, such as Spain, such as France, but my personal favorite, and at least it's in the top 3 of the top 5, and not the top 3, according to the inner or the different standards of experts in it, is olive oil that comes from Palestine. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, there is no doubt, He spoke about that in the Quran al-Kareem, and He called it blessed, Mubarak. So we see a similarity between olive oil, olives, the olive tree, and also between honey. Moving on. First and foremost, honey is good for a common ailment that most people suffer from. Anyone who's been overseas, who's been on Hajj, and Hajj without any doubt is from the greatest acts of worship and from the greatest training grounds to get your nafs pure and clean, and to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to love Him, to invoke Him, to pray to Him, to connect yourself to your Maker, is the pilgrimage of Hajj. What do most pilgrims do when they make Hajj? Or in the last couple of years we've been here in Al-Medina, we've seen a lot of pilgrims doing what? They come and they wear masks. They're afraid of getting sick. They're afraid of getting ill. There lies no doubt we have that which is called the Hajj cough. Anyone who makes Hajj or Umrah, he goes into the Prophet's masjid, and it takes him 10 minutes to get out the masjid because it's so crowded. He hears what in the background? Cough, echo, cough, 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 cough. We call it the Hajj cough. From the best ways to rid yourself of a common cough is